In this video, we're going to be making this newspaper design, and I love old vintage newspapers, or just honestly the newspaper that you could probably get today for your city or wherever you might be. And I think that utilizing it as a design is perfect for maybe advertising or creating a social post or even creating an email graphic or just anything else. And so you might be utilizing this vintage-esque style for a campaign, or maybe it fits with your brand, and that's what we're going to learn how to do in Kittl. So let's go ahead and dive in. I have got some references here. Some I pulled from Pinterest, some I pulled from Kittl, like this wanted poster right here, and then some I actually generated with AI, giving it no real specific instructions or words other than to generate a mock newspaper layout. And so there's a couple of different things here that I think we can pull from and make something really, really cool. I absolutely love this Harry Potter one, this Daily Prophet newspaper flyer over here on the right. I actually have this hanging in my house. I'm a major Harry Potter fan. And I also like this mock-up that I found on Pinterest. And then a few of these I generated with Kittl AI over here in the left panel. We actually have a ton of image gen models. If you haven't looked at this lately, we have so much more than the 3 that we had before. Now we have Google in here. We've got Seed Dream. We've got something called Flash. Anyway, so I asked it to create like a bunch of old vintage ad stuff that you would see in a newspaper. And so all of this kind of stuff is going to influence what we are going to be making. And a few things that I noticed are there's actually several kinds of type being used, whether that's going to be more like decorative or gothic, like this Good Times here, or this Daily Prophet right here. I noticed like big, bold headline type that's more sans serif. I also notice headline type that's serif. And so I think this is another fun thing about this kind of design style, is that you can get really playful with the type choices for your newspaper, so long as they kind of fit in with that newspaper style. All right, enough talking. Let's go ahead and start something. I am going to go over here and just put our artboard size on a poster. So we have all these presets here. I'm just going to go with the poster size here, maybe make it just a little bit bigger for us to work with. And then this sounds maybe a little bit silly, but I'm actually going to add some margin on mine. I'm going to back this down to, let's say, about 5. And that feels pretty good. And so the reason I'm doing this is because I do want to have a defined edge around the side. Maybe we increase this just a little bit. Yeah, like 0.6. Okay, that looks pretty good. So the reason is because I want to have this defined border, this clean space around it. As you can see around this one has a very clean border. This has a very clean kind of white border. It doesn't go all the way to the edge. So that's why I add that margin, and anything that I add to the board here in Kittl will snap. See how it's snapping there to the side of that? And so that's going to help us a lot when we're aligning things. The first thing we're going to get started with is, of course, our big headline. I'm going to hit the T button to add some type, and we're going to go with the Daily Kittl News. Okay, so I'm going to put this in here, and this is obviously going to go towards the top. Over here on the right side, we can go up into the typeface panel, and I'm going to type newspaper or just news. And we actually have one called London News that I think is going to be perfect for this. It's actually really close to what I wanted to begin with. And we are going to make this substantially bigger, and maybe actually also space out the letter spacing. So let's go with something like 30. Maybe we would want even more. Let's just bump it up and see. Like, yeah, I think something like that looks pretty good. And then we are going to basically increase this all the way up to the sides. And you can see here that what's happening is the bounding box of the type, you see how it's snapping there? So to get that to be a little bit more flush, we want to go just to where the threshold is and then make it a little bit bigger. Now, we could, of course, increase it past the bounding box, but I'm not really that terribly worried about it. And then we are also going to add a little "the" above it. And for this one, we're going to use a script font because I got this idea from here, the Daily Prophet. I like this really cool vintage, it's like kind of grainy, it's maybe a low res photo, but the T is like wrapping around the P here, and it's just a more like vintagey kind of like almost script like text style, and I want that for above the Daily Kittl News. So over here we can actually filter our fonts by script, and we want something really elaborate for this, and there's one that's called ballet, and that's the one we want. Let's see. Oh, let's undo this. Ballet. Yeah, okay, so here it is. So it's handwritten font. So yeah, I love the T on this one. And if we put this up here just above, then now we have the Daily Kittl News, and I can bump this to the top, and then you can see that's gonna snap just above the threshold here. Maybe we grab both. You can grab multiple things by holding Shift, and then I'm just gonna nudge this down to where the top of that is. And then now what I'm gonna do is create like a little bounding box around this with some lines. So all I have to do is grab our shape builder down here, or you can hit R for the rectangle tool. And I'm just gonna draw out a bar that's maybe about this thickness or so. We may change that a little bit, and we are going to just simply duplicate it on the other side. I do think it's maybe still a little bit too thick now. And what we wanna do is we can zoom way in here, and then we can adjust our thickness with the little grabber here on the side. I think that's probably better. We want it to be a little bit more pinstripey, and we're gonna bring this down a little bit. And to duplicate, I like to hold the Alt or Option key, click, and then drag to go to the other side, which we can do just like that. And then we'll also make sure our the is centered. We'll make sure our Kittl News is centered, which it is. And so already it's kind of coming together. I like this type layout already. You're gonna notice that in newspaper layout specifically, your type is going to say a lot. Now, I'm thinking if I notice on some of these, we have some subtext up here. I really like how there's text underneath it, so I think we're gonna play with some of that. But there's also this idea, yes, I really love, I'm gonna use this one really heavily. There's this text down here on, or this up top on here, and I don't exactly know what it says, but because this is going to be a newspaper for design or for designers, I want there to be a little space here that kind of mimics that text coming out of the side. So if we zoom in here quite a bit, I can actually grab this left and right arrow and make this shorter or longer. And then after I get this about where I want to be, I'm going to hit T, add some new text here. We're going to make this way, way, way smaller. Bring it over here. You can scale, by the way, from the center if you also hold Alt or Option. So you see this little arrow right here, you can hit Alt or Option, it'll scale, which makes it really easy for scaling it down to what you want it to be. And one of my all-time favorite fonts is Instrument Serif, which is going to work really well for this kind of newspapery style design. And I also like that it has an italic style. So we are going to say for designers, just like this. And maybe let's increase it. Let's go for graphic designers. Space this out, and I like this a lot. We're going to probably, we're going to extend our text now. Again, I'm going to hold the Alt or Option key, our big text I mean, and I'm going to bring this all the way to touch flush with this corner right here. And then that way I can kind of move this to be, well, actually I can right justify this one. Yep, nice. And then we can go back in here and bring this about right here. And I think that's nice, just like that. All right, let's zoom out a little bit. Yeah, it's just subtle, super subtle, small. You'd really have to look at it to kind of see what's happening. Let's bring our text down just a tad. There we go. And I think maybe though it needs to be a little bit bigger. So let's increase it a little bit, zoom back in here, and we're going to increase this size. And I think this is going to look nice. Let's zoom back out. A couple of different ways to zoom. You can hit your plus or minus keys, but I also like to hold the control or the command button, and I use my scroll wheel to scroll in and out, and that's how I get better increments. So I think that's a little bit better. If at any point we want to see what this looks like without the margin, we can go over here and just click the margin off. And so now we can see like, okay, is it legible enough? We might make that bigger. I'm not entirely sure yet. All right, now what we're going to do is make this same kind of bounding box here, but I want it to go all the way across. So we're not going to do any kind of like cutting in the middle of this one right here. And to do this, I can actually just center it. And over here on the right, I'm just going to increase the width of this. We're going to go 12. Okay, not quite enough. Let's go 14. Not quite enough. Let's go 18. And that gets us pretty close, right? So then we can go over here and we can, there we go, and grab our anchor, boom, put it right there. And then the thicknesses are not the same. And we want to get this as close to this thickness as this one, so we need to bring this in just a little bit. And there we go, that looks a lot better. We're going to bring this up like this. And there we go. Okay, now I liked that over here on this side. Yeah, so there's this like text in between here. There's this text in between here as well. It kind of is over on this one, but I really like how this is like kind of bordered like this. And so what we're gonna do is make ourselves a little area for that. So I'm gonna hold the Alt or Option key and duplicate this again. And now we kind of have this area to put some text in there. And we can just copy our instrument serif type because I think that's gonna work nicely for us. And instead of italic, I'm going to put it back to regular, and we're going to go all caps, and we're going to go left justified for this one. Obviously make it quite a bit bigger. And we're going to say that this one, we're going to say this is issue 01 because this will be like the first one. And let's go ahead and bump this up. Let's go 18, and we're going to bump this up to about right here. And then we're going to duplicate this. I am going to go over here and center the text, and then up here in the alignment tools, I'm going to hit center so that it's centered up here. And then we are going to do ourselves a little quote here. For the love of everything in design. Seems like a cool kind of slogan for this. And then over on the right side, we'll just duplicate this again. I love holding Alt or Option and dragging. Right justified, so we can put this flush against the margin here. And then we are going to put our date, which today would be August, and I believe it's the 21st today, 2025. Just like this. We don't need all of this extra space for the type, so I'm just going to make that box a little bit smaller. And then we could do something interesting like in between this, but I think it's going to be enough to just do like a dotted line pattern or something. So like this, which I think is cool. Don't know why it's blue. Let's turn it to black, or let's turn it to whatever the same color is as this. And then I'm going to make it a bit smaller by just scaling it down. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that's pretty nifty. And then we'll just put it roughly in the center. Sometimes you got to eyeball some of this. I'm not going to be as precise for the moment because I can always tidy it later. Yeah, that looks pretty cool. That looks decent for the time being. Yeah, I think that's really neat. It's just a way to like fill some space because I don't really have anything else I want to say there, but this is a pretty long amount of white space here to not have anything going on. But you can see that they do this in these other ones. Like there's nothing here in between here and nothing here. But I don't know. I like the dotted lines there, so why not? Now I'm thinking that we can get a little bit more creative with this bottom line by doing something more ornamental. And so if we go to these like ornate lines here, we will find a little bit more intricate patterns, I think, that fit with this kind of vintagey border. Honestly, I like this first one right here. So if I hit the replace button, it's going to make it really massive, which I don't want for this, but that's okay. We're just going to scale this way down. Okay, to about here. And what we can do, and we'll fix all this spacing here in just a second, is we're just going to duplicate this. So we're going to have 1 in the middle and 2 on the sides. And we want to make sure that they attach. You see how there's dotted lines? Let me zoom in here so you can see this. So you see how like there's the dotted lines that are vertical. That means that they're touching. So that's exactly what we want. So there's going to be 2 on the left. Let's just do the same thing on the right. I'm going to hold Alt or Option key, drag, go, and boom, there's those lines, and do it again. And boom, there we go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select all of these. And here's what's really cool. Usually you might group this, okay, together, but now we have the shape builder. You can see the icons are here above it. And over here on the right side, you see shape builder. If I just hit union, this all becomes one piece now. Really, really cool. So now I don't have to go in and select a whole bunch of pieces. It's just one unified piece. And then now I can scale it up to our corners there. And now we have a really, really cool border for this. And now I can just select everything here that's in the middle. And oops, we don't want to select our middle text. And then we'll just kind of put this, eyeball it right here in the middle. And I think that looks pretty cool. All right, and it's at this point that the rest of the layout is going to be vital for what we fill in. And what I mean by that is like the grid or the boxes. And so to do this, you could start playing with like throwing type in there and throwing images in there. But I think a better and more helpful way to do this would be to just grab your shape tool, your rectangle tool. I start by drawing out a simple shape. Over here on the right, I'm going to add a border to it and then turn the color off. and then I'm gonna make my border like a lot smaller. And then with this, I can start like mapping out how much space I want to have for certain areas. So maybe for this area of the design, I want to have it that space. And then maybe for this one, we want to have like what would be maybe like closer to a square. Okay, and then maybe we do it again, and then maybe we do another one that's long. So maybe, yeah, we'll do this one that's like a little bit longer, duplicate it, and so these are kind of like the same, and then this we can need to make the same. Okay, so now we have a square, and then we have these two kind of longer areas, and then another square. And what we can do with this, grab them all and then hit this tidy tool up here, and it will even the space out between all of them. So then we've got this. So this looks like a pretty decent layout. So we're going to have some different things in here. And then we need to get into the bulk of like what our content is. And so I can duplicate this one. Let's say this one's going to take up a bit more space like this. I can duplicate this one and have this one take up a little bit more space. And I kind of want to just keep everything somewhat grid heavy, maybe, right? And as I increase these, the border weights are going to change a little bit on these blocks, but we're going to delete them. So I'm not entirely worried about that. Over here, we're going to have like, let's say this would be like a headline, and then we're going to have some paragraphs of text. I would say is probably great to have. So we're going to have like a focal image, a headline. I'm going to have 2 columns of text. Why not? And we're going to grab these, make them a little bit bigger. Maybe the text has all of this area. Maybe we're going to do a portrait of somebody. So I'm going to grab this one, put it here, and then we'll have another amount of a text that goes here. And so this takes just a second, but you know, you can build out your grid. So if you're following along with me, your grid may be looking a little bit different than mine. We're going to be filling them in with imagery. We're going to be filling them in with text. And I'm going to show you quick ways to do that. And then over here on the left side, I think what would be really cool is if we figured out one of those vintage ads that I was mentioning. Yeah, we can make sure that we fill this entire space, this corner space, with an ad. And then we'll just kind of leave this space here for some text. So very roughly and very quickly, you can see that a grid has come together. It's not the cleanest. It's not, you know, perfect by any means at this current moment, but we have our boxes to start playing with so that we know what to put in them. I'm going to use my key reference here. I love how this has a bunch of different stuff below the text that we put there. So we have like this $10,000 reward. We have a weather report, and then we have like a zodiac thing here, and then like a bunch of text that's mixed up, and then I don't even know what this is, and then we have this little icon. I like this. So I mean, obviously I'm biased. Yours is going to look different, but instead of a $10,000 reward, I think this area on the left would be like perfect for what is a daily quote or a weekly quote, I guess, or well, I say daily Kittl News, but you could say weekly. But let's just say this, yeah, let's say this goes out daily. Over here in the left side panel, we have text, and we already have paragraph text laid out. So if I hit show all, this is what I meant when I said I'm going to show you quick ways to do this. So we already have a ton of text layouts, and I'm going to go start popping some of these in. Just from this view already, I like this one as a potential for like this area right here. Okay, so let me make this bigger, scale this up, and now I can just delete this box because I like this in this area. It's already starting to come together. I haven't even done anything yet. Let's scroll down because I think I want to find something more like quote creative, and instead let's go to titles. Maybe it's in titles, and let's see what we can find in here because I want something more vintagey, more kind of like magic-y. Oh, here we go. This one's cool. So we're gonna pop this in. That's super cool. Wow. We're gonna make this fill this space. Yes. We're gonna go ahead and delete this block. I'm gonna make this fit right here on the side. Bring it up, and then instead of each day is filled with light and hope, I'm going to say endless revisions. Let me know in the comments if you feel that, you know, just clients and whoever else just asking you for revisions. So, all right, that's already kind of filling up that space quite nicely. And I think we need to change some color. I don't like the idea of having a full white color for this. I'm actually going to go and make this much more of an off, kind of weathered looking yellow. And then we need to do the same thing with this white. Go to the white and click that. Good to go. Okay, cool. So now we've got that one down, and that looks really, really neat. Okay, and then over in the text panel again, so we have these preset badges here. So I don't really have to work on creating something. I think this one's pretty awesome, but I think this one will fit our purposes. If I click this, I'm gonna close that panel. So we're gonna put this next to it in this box, and I can just scale it down to make sure that it fits. And roughly, yeah, I think that looks pretty decent. Now I can just delete that box. And what we're gonna do is, I think we're just gonna turn the red color off. I don't think we need it. Yeah, I don't think we need that. And what we're gonna do is turn this to the same dark color, the same black color, and do the same thing here. That one's already that way. And then we'll just change this color to that. Yeah, I think that looks pretty cool. All right, so we're not a distilling company. So I'm gonna click in here and I'm just gonna go design news you can trust. I'm gonna click out. Oh, that's almost perfect. Okay, I'm not even gonna edit that anymore. I mean, honestly, I think it looks really, really cool. And I'm not sure what the significance of the 1 is, but I'm just gonna put a K for Kittl. And I know I could put the logo in there, but I'm gonna show you something really cool. Let's see, what we wanna do here in these two boxes is, I think I want to create a weather report, but instead of weather like sunny, cloudy, whatever, I want it to be like trends, because we do a lot of trending design styles and tutorials and educational videos on the channel. And so I want to have like a weather report about like what's hot, what's cold, what's trending in terms of design. So let's go ahead and hit T to add some more type. And for this, we're gonna start mixing up our type again. We're gonna find a more of a sans serif headline type. Now I can filter it by just going over here and clicking sans serif. And what we wanna do is find a condensed typeface, and I can type the words condensed. And so we see some options here. Anton is a good one. Babus New I think would be great, but there is another one. Ink Modern is cool, but Milk Store. I think Milk Store is actually a little bit tighter, a little bit more condensed, and it's gonna fit for this area. I'm gonna type in weather report. Now, again, if you're following along with me, your text can look very different. Even if you're following the same grid as me, your type can look different. I'm going to stretch this out, not stretch, but I'm going to increase the tracking here quite a bit, because that's kind of just a newspapery thing to do. And I'm going to make it fill this space, and we don't need this box anymore because I know what I'm going to align it with, and I can clean all of this up after I get this together. It's already kind of coming together, quite honestly, but let's fill in some of this area with some trends. I am going to copy this text here, left align, take down the uppercase or make it regular case, and we're going to do some Swiss design. And let's say the next one can be like punk design. I'm just trying to think through the ones that we've done recently. All right, so here are my design styles that I've put in here. And what we're gonna do is over here on the right, I want to put like hot, cold, cool to signify whether or not you should be designing with them. And I'm going to kind of put it together or connect it with these little dots like this. So I'll just kind of duplicate these one after another like this. Maybe I have to make that one smaller. Put this one here. So Gothic design, for example, I'm just going to duplicate this text, has been hot, and we need to make this way smaller and put this over here. We're going to right align this with here. Yep, and a neat trick if you want to be able to do this consistently, if you hit Shift R, you'll see the rulers come up, and I can drag a guideline or grid line over to snap. So that way, if I want to snap it, you see it's snapping, turning red or darker red. I can just snap it right there and it's done. All right, let me fill these in with what I think is trending. I'm going to make this, yeah, there we go. All right, so here's like what I think: hot, warm, hot, cool, cold, hot, sure. And then I think another kind of cool thing would be like adding some context as to like how hot or how cold. So for example, you know, it might be boiling hot, and to do boiling, I want to do, oh yeah, I've already bookmarked. You can bookmark your fonts, by the way. You see this little bookmark icon if you click it. I love this one. Yeah, perfect. And so like say, for example, the first one, is boiling hot. And it's these like little attention to detail things like you see here, where it's like you have the little script next to a serif. It's just, it's kind of cool that you can get this to be a little bit more intricate. So let me fill these in. All right, so I've got these all filled in here. So we've got Gothic, Punk, Swiss, Trinket, Vaporwave, Kawaii. So we've been doing a lot of tutorials for these and educational content. You can check it out on the channel. And I've got in here whether or not they're boiling, lukewarm, boiling hot, breezy, cool, ice cold. Yeah, and then we need a little like extra little mention or something down here at the bottom. And what I'm gonna do for that is I crafted some little text for this, and I'm going to make sure that this is aligned, and I'm going to justify this type. Now, when I do that, it's going to look strange. So if I hit these text setting dots, I need to open the justify setting, which is going to, it's going to look a little weird. But if I copy in my my little phrase, this report brought to you by the Kittl Design Experts forecast, looking at trends and news in the design space for your good. Now you can see this is being stretched really, really strangely. And so what we're going to do is kind of minimize this until it feels, that feels about right. And maybe you can decrease this a little bit like that, and then open the space here like that. And I think that feels pretty good. Now you'd have to get in there. Like if I zoom out of here, you'd have to really get in there to see what that says. And that's kind of the point. Let's grab this and we're going to just kind of move it up a little bit like this. All right, it's starting to fill out. Now with this section, I want to put a little kind of brief about what's covered in this issue, but we've got to fill this out to know what to put there. So I'm just going to insert some paragraph text for the moment. If I do show all on the paragraphs area, we can just grab this paragraph here, and I'm going to ungroup the letter A. And it looks like there's like 2 text boxes in here. And I'm just gonna like leave this for the moment, maybe make this a little bit bigger. Yeah, because it's justified text. And this isn't the cleanest, but we're gonna leave it like this for the moment because I don't exactly know what we're gonna put there. So it's just filler text. And what I think would be really cool for this area right here is to take our Kittl K logo, which I am going to just drag in. Yeah, I just have a picture of the K right here, and we're going to turn it into a very vintagey, etched, hatched shadow looking style. And to do that, I am going to use a new feature called Kittl Flows. So I'm going to put our Kittl logo here on this artboard. I'm just going to drag it up here out of the way for us. And if I hit this little arrow, it's going to create a smartboard, and then based on what I input, it is going to generate it for me. Now I pre-prepared this prompt for us, which is going to be turning this icon into a Victorian vintage version with etchings and drop shadow like it would be placed on a badge. And then what we can do is keep it transparent and keep it 1 by 1. And over in flows, we do have a high and a low, and you may have noticed that your credits changed to tokens. There wasn't any price changes. If anything, it actually helps you when all of the models go down or they go to like half pricing for credits. Tokens is just better because it helps us figure out the right amount. So as soon as all of these models go down, you're gonna save a ton of what are now called tokens. So I'm gonna keep it on high for the moment and hit generate. And while that's happening, I want this area to actually be about Kittl Flows. So this headline will be about flows. I'm going to paste in a promotional image that we made for flows. Drag it over here. Yep. And we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to add a 3x2 artboard. Well, I did it automatically because this is already a 3x2 artboard. And so you can see here, turn your ideas into designs. And I'm going to give this a very similar prompt to the K. So I'll paste this in, and I want it to make it look like a camera, photograph, black and white, all that kind of stuff. And we won't use transparent for that. Generate. And it looks like our K here has changed to a vintagey-esque looking thing, which I think is super cool. I can go ahead and convert that to an image. And then this is going to fit perfectly in this little box right here, where we can just go ahead and get rid of this. And I think this fits nicely in this area. And I don't really want it to be the kind of weathered manila looking color. So if I go down to photo filter, I can just take the saturation out of this like so. I could vectorize it too, but I think this one looks pretty cool. I actually went ahead and generated a couple of these, and this is another one that I generated, and I like it a little bit more because of this little extra swoopiness, and I think it's just a little bit thicker, so I may delete this one and we'll use this one because I just like that the K is a little bit thicker. And yes, let's make this bigger here. Do the same thing, photo filter, make the saturation, just turn the saturation down to make it that same kind of color. Again, I could vectorize it, I could remove color or something like that if I wanted to. But let me just scroll out a glance, hit Shift R to turn that grid line off, and we're looking pretty cool. Like we are starting to create a newspaper, which is really, really, really neat. We need some adjusting going on here, and that's just kind of part of the game. I'm gonna hit Shift R. And I've already kind of created this grid line here for where this kind of content should go or where it should live. And so I want to stick to that. And so I've put that grid line there so that when we start putting in our content, it stays justified to this one, to this left grid line here. Oh, nice. Look at that. That's super cool. That's super dark. So it is very weathered. This is very messy. And so that's what we want for this. We are going to add a photo filter effect and like bring the brightness up, maybe turn the contrast up a little bit, and maybe we'll change the blur and add like a little bit of noise. That is looking very weathered and old timey. And we are going to make it fill this space. And I can actually crop this because it's a little bit, yeah, I think that looks actually a little bit better. And we're gonna fill this space. Now I can get rid of that block. I'm gonna raise this up like this. And then now we need to work on our headline, which is gonna be in this area. I am going to hit the T button, and then let's see, what do we want our text to be? First of all, left justified, snap it to that guide. So we're just gonna go kind of basic with this. We're gonna go Kittl flows makes a major splash, exclamation point. And we'll drag this over to here. And we want, I'm gonna use this one called Modern Hand Sans. I really, really like this one. And the reason is it's a variable font, which is super cool. So I can increase the width of this to where it can take up the entire area of this box. Now, the line height is pretty wild. We're gonna massively reduce that. And I need to make sure that this is gonna fit this area. So I'm gonna go back to the text settings, hit justify, and now we need to figure out how to make this not look so kind of awkward. So you see how the justification is increasing the space between these letters, but not this one up here. And so what we need to do is either play with our variable settings, which you see how I do this and it kind of like fills it out. We can either play with the variable settings or we can play with the size of the type. So one of the two options. And I think for us, variable is going to be better for making everything consistent right up into the breaking point to the next line. I think this one right here is going to work a little bit better, and maybe we need to like increase the line spacing a little bit. So that's feeling like it's decent. I think that's really nice. So Kittl flows makes a major splash. And then for our text over here in the left, we want to obviously change some of this stuff. I don't think it makes sense for it to say, I mean, maybe it does. I don't know if it makes sense to say sanctuary, but let's think about what we could put right here. Okay, so instead of sanctuary, maybe we put this as the designery. I don't know, just making stuff up now. And these are grouped. I'm going to hit Command G to ungroup all of this so that these are all independent text boxes. This is currently a different typeface. I'm just going to change it to Instrument Serif because we've been using Instrument Serif. And we're just going to call this the corner section designery because, I mean, why not?
Everybody's so creative.
And let's make this a little bit bigger. Okay, maybe about like 3/4 the size of this designery type. Maybe a little bit too big. Let's go back down to like 25. Okay, cool. Make this up here. And then we need some more filler text about what this section is for. And we have this really cool thing right here called rewrite text. And if I click on it, I can tell it this what to do. I can tell it what to fill it with. So I'm going to say, write a paragraph about how important design principles are, especially when it comes to typography, and we'll do formal and generate text. And what it's going to do is provide me with some options to plug into this text box. Let's see what it gives us. I'm not really going to read too much into this. I like this play a pivotal role. Let's see, essential. Let's just replace it. Okay, cool. That looks pretty cool. It is doing some strange things like adding uppercases in certain places, but not too much of a big deal. And there we go. That looks good. I'm going to change this to what I think would be better for our filler text, which is Adobe Caslon. Garamond would be cool too. Yeah, that looks a lot better. Just generally for legibility and reading. Let's get this to the point where it feels consistent. That's a little bit better. Let's increase the size just a tad because we want it to be flush here. And let's see if we can find a breaking point. Yeah, there we go. Found a breaking point. Now this feels a lot better, and we are going to have some space here because we want to make sure that like there's this column of space that separates the left and the right, and I think that's pretty decent. So I like that. We've got our little text about design principles. We've got the designery here in the top left corner. Things are starting to fill out. I want to put like maybe this is an article, and we can say something like see more on page 11 or something like that, and we'll make this smaller. Let's take this back to Modern Hand Sans, and we're going to decrease that and maybe make it a little bit more variable. And then we need a little arrow, so we can type in arrow up in the right. And what we're going to do is, I like this one. That's cool. It's pretty basic, but it's going to get the job done. And we'll just put it like right here. And that's suggesting that, you know, there's more to be read or more to be had on page 11 about this article of the designery. All right, and so now we have some space for like a panel, a really cool vintage panel that could go here. And that's also super easy. We don't need to actually create the panel ourselves because we've already got a bunch of cool ones here in the Elements panel. And I'm of course thinking of one that can fill up this kind of area to be on the left side of the arrow because we've already got this kind of taken care of. And so we want to find a cool panel like this one that has like a circle on it. And let's see if we can find a pretty cool one. Maybe we'll go with this one. Let's see how that looks. It's not quite long enough. This one could be cool. Yeah, I think this might be it. Yeah, I think this could be, so you see what I mean, where the top of the circle here is like offsetting the right side of the arrow. So it's kind of like filling this awkward space to the left. I think this is going to work for us. Yeah, for our purposes, this is going to be great. And what we're going to do is make this bigger, obviously, to fill out this space here. Doesn't have to be perfect, but I do want it to fill this space. Now, the colors are not right. So we're going to hide this blue color and we're going to change the green color to be the same color as our text and stuff. Let's change this also to the black color. And what we're going to do is change this color, interestingly, to, yeah, that's already better. Okay, it's simple, it's clean, it's better, and we're going to make it bigger to fill the entire column. Yes, and then what we need to do is put some stuff in here, obviously, okay? So we're gonna add some more type, and we're gonna put this above, change it to this color, and we are going to say like smart board. So this is kind of like an advertisement for smart boards. And what I'm gonna do, which is a pretty common thing, is I may separate the S from the rest of this, but let's see what happens. I'm gonna type in vintage because I want to use one of our very, very cool vintage heritage type fonts. In fact, if I type in heritage, all of our heritage type fonts will be in here, which is what I want. So that means all of the typefaces that we have created. So this one could be cool. Let's see, Black River. I think Black River is probably the move. And the reason is because, like the other font, this is also a variable. And so I can kind of like stretch it or fill it to be the space I want. But I am going to delete the S so that I can make it fill that circle, and I don't want it to be like messing with the space here. So I'm going to have it go right here. I am going to copy it. Obviously, we're just going to do S, and this is going to be its own individual character. And I'm going to put it here. And then now I can make this S like really big and fill the space of this. And then because this is a variable font, I can just increase it. See how cool that is? I can just increase the space so that it looks like it's attached to the S. And so we could add some kind of more decoration and effect to this. So over here on the right side, we see this text shadow, and I can put this embossed shadow on here. And I can also add some text decoration and put like these lines in here, which is pretty neat. And I'll just do the same thing, add the shadow, embossing, go down here, text decoration, and do the horizontal lines like that. And so obviously like this letter is bigger than the rest of them. And so the lines here are like really, really thin. So what we would want to do then is go over here and kind of increase the distance so that it matches the brightness. And we could continue playing with this for the purposes of right now. I think this is good. Otherwise, it'll take me a while to kind of do all of this. And so we're missing now some stuff here. And I think what would be neat, more text, that's kind of the name of the game right now, is a little subheading or like a sub thing for smartboards. And the thing that comes to mind is just find out how you can work smarter. And we're obviously going to make this way smaller. And maybe instead of how you can, I'm just going to put how to. And we're going to put here, again, make it small. And I'm going to use another one of my favorite heritage type fonts, which is Milk Store. Boom, look at that. Boom, look at that. It really goes with the overall aesthetic. And it's a little wonky. Like putting these compositions together is a little wonky. And I think that fills that space really nicely. And things are starting to come together a little bit, I think, in my opinion.
That's my opinion!
Let's see. I'm just going to give some stuff a little bit more breathing room, I think. Bring this up so that this text is a little bit more aligned. Bring this up so it's a little bit more aligned as well. And I think maybe this text is like a little bit too big. Yeah, okay, that's much better. It's just much more digestible, I think. And we can have this area here. And yeah, we can maybe bring this up just a tad. And so, yeah, it feels like a little bit, if I zoom out a little bit, it's just more digestible, I think. It feels like it's part of that section. And things are starting to come together. Now, we mentioned that we wanted to kind of have like an ad take this place here. And what we can do, I'm thinking of like a garage type thing, like an auto garage type thing, but for design.
I don't know what you mean there, babes.
I'm just going to type in garage in the templates panel, and we're going to see what comes up. And let's find one that's like really neat. Ooh, this is cool. So let me click this. I'm going to add it in, bring this up here, and we do not need it this big. All right, let's do a cool thing with flows. We don't have to use flows. You could go in here and I could just edit all of this stuff. I could just edit the type, but I'm going to save a little bit of time so we can keep working on our newspaper. I'm going to add a smartboard, and then I've already made a prompt. I'm going to paste in for turning this into a vintagey advertisement, but instead of a car, I'm going to have it turn it into a vintage metal toolbox with paintbrushes, pencils, and I'm going to have it change the text from good auto shop to good design shop. And we also don't want to use any texture, so I'm going to use a transparent background and hit generate. Let's see what happens. You know, I don't know. It could not work. It could work. Let's see what happens. But for this, now we need some filler text for our article here. I should have done that like earlier, but that's okay. I'm going to copy over our text here, and I am going to do this right here, and I'm going to keep the same sort of vibes going with this space. And this is like a kind of quick way that I make the space work here. I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to get rid of this. And we're going to align this block. I'm going to duplicate this block. And oh, it's almost perfect. Dang, that was just eyeballing it. I put those boxes there. That's almost perfect. All right. We're going to put this up like this. And then I already have type for this. So I'm going to, I have the written version of what I want to put in here. So I'm just going to paste it in for the sake of time. And let's maybe change our, let's see, how can we do this? Yeah, no, we need to keep this 15 and I'll adjust it after the fact. Paste that in and let's just make this a lot smaller. Yeah, because I think it needs to stay about right there. So what is that, 12? So let's go 12. Okay, and yeah, so we've got some weird stuff going on. Let's see. All right, so let's go see if our generation is done. It is. Check this out. Okay, so we've got the Good Design Shop, Gearbox Garage, 10% off your first order. All this doesn't really matter. It's fine. It's a weathered ad. It's going to be perfect for what we're doing. You could do this yourself. You can make your own cool vintage ads using flows. And we are going to kind of line this up and I am going to get rid of that. Very, very cool. And let's find a border. So let's go to ornaments and we can go to our frames category, I believe, and we want to, let's see, is this dots? Look at that. Perfect. First one was dots. And we're going to go here and we're going to change this to the same color. And we need to like semi-stretch this a little bit so I can hold the shift key and stretch this out because I want it to fill that space, which is fine with me. And we're going to make this a little bit bigger. And I don't think we need all of this stuff down here, but if you double click in or right click and crop, if you double click in on an image, you can crop and then you can exit the cropping mode over here. And then this will actually allow us to fill the space a little bit more, which I think is cool. And I just like that it's like weathered and kind of like rugged and vintagey, and now it fills the space a lot better. And I know it's kind of weird looking with all the lines, but let me get off of that. Yeah, if I take the lines off, it's starting to come together. It's still a little wonky, but that's kind of the point of what I'm going. I'm going for more of that magical vibe that I saw in the Daily Prophet one here, which this is more of a headline, but there's like so much stuff going on. I think it's just interesting to look at, which I think is cool. I'm going to add another panel to kind of go with this one in this space right here. Let's go back to that panel area and we just need a small one for this area right here. And let's make sure it's the same kind of style. All right, we'll go with this one right here. And it's a little chunky and we only needed to take up like not a ton of space. So let's start taking some colors off. Let's see if this, okay, that's the inside. We need the inside to stay this color. Let's take off the green color. Actually, let's just take that color off. We want to take that color off. Yes, okay. And now we want to make the gold color also black. Yeah, okay. That's simple. That's what we want. We want simple, even though there is like more to it, and that's okay. So we're going to, let's just copy this text, bring it down. We're going to have it come to the front and we're going to say, try flows today, exclamation point, and we'll put it in here. And any smaller would be kind of weird. So the variable font, we can make it fit and we'll put it in like this. And I don't like the shadow. So, ooh, that's kind of cool. Just the hatched lines on it. Yeah, that's cool. All right, we'll leave it like that for the moment. And we have the variable down in here. Yes. And we are going to make it smaller. Yeah, I think that's cool. And this kind of like bookends the last part of this area here. So that's looking good. And then now we just need a little bit more information down here on the bottom. And then we need to go back up here and kind of change this text to, yeah, what we're doing. And I also think that a little area, if we look back at our references, you see how there's like extra things with the page numbers that they're on. I've seen that in other places as well. I think that's really neat. And I think we could do our own version of that, but just kind of more simply by just like doing it ourselves down here at the bottom. And yeah, making our own little brackets for that. I think that'd be cool. Do this. Okay. And then what we can do is extend it. Boom, all the way to the side. And I don't know why I did that when I could just grab this and boom, and I can grab both of these. Okay, and then now that's gonna be an area for like more page numbers and stuff. And I think it'd be cool if we had like a little featured article about someone, like a fake artist maybe. And so over in photos, let's portrait, and let's find somebody that we want to have as a portrait. And maybe one that's like a little bit more emotional. This looks very emotional. I think this person's crying.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
This person is crying. So maybe the idea is like, you know, their art has been utilized, or like they're being sponsored at a conference or something. And this designer's like so happy that they are having their art shown to people. But we need to make it look vintagey. So let's do the same thing. Get rid of that. I'm going to keep this. We kind of need it as a square. So let's do that. Let's put this in here. Put this up like this. And we'll do a smart board. And we're going to do a very similar thing to the other ones and make it a worn out camera photograph. And let's do that. And then let's come up with a little story. Let's copy some text here. And we are going to make it longer. And we're going to say, write a story about how a local designer has their work featured in a major conference, so much so that she began crying. We're going to go inspiring, generate text, and we may need to like fill it out a little bit, but at least it'll give us a starting place. All right. Yeah, we'll say that this is about Emily. Sure. So Emily is a local designer, and yeah, that's cool. So we're going to get rid of that. And let's see, we need to copy it, make that bigger. Let's go check on our photo, see if it's done. And it is. Look at that. Super cool. Convert to an image. Bring this down and put it in here. Oh, we need to filter this a little bit, bring the brightness up and the contrast down. Bro, yeah, that's super vintagey how it did that. Let's go with like that. Boom. I think that's super cool. Yep, that's in line with that. This needs to be a little bit more like this. Yes. But I think actually what would be cool is if this had its own little environment or its own little call out section with a header, and we'll just say like this is talk of the town or something like that, and it's like its own little section of Kittl Daily News. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna change this into a Gothic style typeface, and we have a ton in here that are going to be perfect for this. Let's go with maybe not. Yeah, that one's pretty cool. Yeah, all right, that's cool. So what we're going to do is make this, talk of the town, make this bigger. So we're going to have this like fill this entire space here. So that alleviates some of our like need for more information. And we're going to say her name is Emily Pennytool. Let's see. And then we truly hope that her work is continued to elevate status while not being copied. Yeah, because we don't want anybody to copy work, but we do want people to value it and take a look. And so, yeah, that's cool. So we have a lot going on in this, but I think it's cool. We're getting close. We're getting close. All right, for our top section up here, I have gone ahead and thought about it and crafted a little blurb about this week's or this month's issue or whatever we're talking about. And what I think would be cool is, first of all, not having it in this regular type. We need it to go back to Caslon so that we have a starting place for this. And then I think what we can do is like actually create some different effects, some different fonts inside of this. So like we can grab this one, we can go up, and now I don't know if you knew this yet, but you can actually change the type inside of the same box. So now I can have multiple types of fonts, multiple weights, multiple colors, multiple things inside of one text box. So for example, for flows, maybe we want to have like something even more intense, like accelerate. I don't know. I'm going to take a second. I'm going to make change a couple of these words to different things, and then we'll come back. All right. So I have done it. I have changed this one text box. You can see over here it says multiple fonts selected, and we got a couple different ones in here. So we got Goblin in here, we got Asset, we got Madlock, we got some just all kinds of different little things in here. I think it makes it look interesting. Makes you want to look at it and be like, what does that say? And it's also very similar to like this I got influenced by up here in the right. So this is a very heavy layout at the current moment, and that's all right. Perhaps we need a little bit more information here, or we could make it bigger, but I think it's fine that it stays the same thing. But we do have a little bit of space going on here that we need to fill. And then we need to put some stuff here about different pages. So I'm going to take this text up here. We are going to put it down here. And then we're going to say like maybe this is like sports. And we don't want it to be all caps. Yeah, because I think it looks better for it to be like lowercase. And then maybe this is like 03, like page 3. And then maybe like do this over here, and this will be like Kittl AI, and this is like what's going on with Kittl AI. And then yeah, let me fill out a couple of this and then we'll come back. All right, so I have filled out this area. Like I said, I got sports, I got Kittl AI, trending styles, which we talked about in that weather report, and then major design news. I made this one a different type because I don't know.
I guess we'll never know.
And then UI updates, so like anything that's changed in the editor. So I think that looks pretty cool. We're still having some spatial issues here, interestingly enough. Let's amend that by bringing our portrait down, and I'm going to use this thing called Reframe. See if I can get it just fill out the top of this. It might not because it's like very grainy and vintagey, so I'm not entirely sure what it's going to do, but let's give it a second and see if it'll reframe the top like of our hat here. Oh, I did it. Oh, that's so awesome. So they continued the hat here around, so it's fine. That's going to help us out with that space there. And bring this up just a tad. And then, let's see, or stolen. Yeah, that feels a lot better. I'm going to duplicate this text. We're going to bring this text down. All right, so I just created some very silly filler text that has nothing really to do with the article, but it helps fill that space a little bit. All right, let's take a quick zoom out and let's see what we got going on. So this feels like it's a little bit in limbo, and it's because I think it's like a little bit broken in the border, so I'm going to add one here. It just helps amend this feeling like it's floating in the middle of nowhere, and so like now it's like nicely housed to a degree. And so, I mean, we would want ideally like some of these spaces to be the same if I was really going to create this for like a brand or an ad or something like that. And so I do it really quickly by taking these blocks and like checking, and it's like almost near, you can get it almost near perfect with your eye generally, but we would want to like spend a little bit more time in like grabbing some of this stuff and seeing if it's in alignment. And let's get rid of these. Let's get rid of this. And some of this stuff is like, now I don't think that this, like all this space is really needed from like the bottom of that. And then maybe we want to take, one of these and put it here, because what we want to do is make this drastically smaller. And maybe we want this one to be, maybe we want this one to be like over here. Actually, we need to make this drastically smaller. Okay, make this here and here. Yeah, so maybe you want to do something like that with like below the talk of the town, and you could even do another one like above it, but it's starting to come into place here, I think. And then what we want to do is grab this, take our margin off, and then we just make a couple little tweaks with the eye just to see what we're looking at. And we have this nice border around this. We have our nice little box with our ad in it. We have our little panel area here, which maybe we need to like fixed just a tad so that it's like a little bit more spaced. We have our designery corner. We have our weather report. I really like this part of the newspaper. Is probably my favorite. This could probably continue to use work until the end of time, but I do like that this all is coming together. I like the tri-flows today. I like these like little panels that stick out, and I think that if I put this one down here next to these and zoomed out a little bit, you would look at that and be like, oh yeah, that's a kind of fits in with the rest of these that are a little bit more heavy. So I hope that this tutorial was helpful for you. I would love to see your vintage newspapers designs. So if you are making your own in Kittl, it'd be great if you could tag us on social, whether that's on Instagram or TikTok or wherever you like to post social. You can always at us at Kittl Design so we can take a look. Let me know what you think of newspaper design. Are you going to be using it for anything? I did this because I love vintage style stuff. I think it'd be really cool for an ad, an email campaign, a social media graphic. If you're working on like blog articles and things like that, I think the newspaper layout and like making interesting and cool layouts and adding a bunch of different text effects and things like that could be really, really cool for you. So you let me know what you think down in the comments. Let us know any other kinds of tutorials that you want to see. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss tutorials just like this one. And we will see you in the next video.